At the Abbott manse, Jack finds Diane with her tablet, thinking about how she will transform the space. He's alarmed when he sees that this involves poofs from Morocco along with floor cushions. He assumes she's trying to get a reaction out of him. His wife asks if they are really that far apart on this. Jack does his best to force a smile. Diane adds he's not to take these suggestions so seriously. He was expecting to at least get some design plans before any choices were made. She thinks that we'll have to wait until he's being less resistant to change. Getting on the defensive, he insists the place already has a certain charm. Yes, it has, for decades, she jokes. He's afraid she might go minimalist, and she threatens she might go avocado green. It would mean a lot to her if he would have faith in her. She promises he won't be disappointed. After some build-up, Jack admits he's just been testing her. Other than the avocado green, he's eager to make changes for all the generations living there to give the old girl some new life. When she says it will be all tweaks and finessing, he likes that. He's taken aback when she announces it's time to pack. Jack assumes she's messing with him again, but she says they need to pack clothes to go on vacation while the house is refreshed. He suggests they wait until summer and go to Italy. His wife informs him the design is done and everything is on the way. This feels like a trick to him, but she says it's speed and efficiency and leads him upstairs to pack. Kyle and Claire discuss Victor. Kyle joins Claire on the lookout in Chancellor Park. From her demeanor, he immediately guesses she is upset and assumes it has to do with backing out of dinner. She's not exactly upset, but she is concerned. It's not because of Harrison, since she thinks he's the sweetest. And it's not because Summer was there. It's because when she asked him about rescheduling, he texted, "If you insist." Kyle claims he was joking, but she doesn't believe it. They are having such a nice time together, she wants to share it with people. He explains that he doesn't hate the idea of dinner with her grandfather, but does think it will be futile. Regardless of how many dinners they have, he will still be Jack's son. Kyle can understand how much she cares about her grandfather and would never interfere with that, but do they really need his acceptance? Very much, she insists. He reminds her that her grandfather doesn't back down. She admits that's what everyone has told her, but she has no experience of it, and she's greedy for the impossible. It's a miracle she has a family who loves, and she's hoping for one miracle more. Kyle still thinks she's inviting disappointment. Claire wants things to be perfect, but assures him she won't walk away from him if her grandfather doesn't approve. He's happy to hear that and tells her she deserves everything she wants. Apologizing again, Kyle regrets upsetting Claire. When she asks if her grandfather will always be an issue, he asks if Victor was even willing to have dinner with him. She admits he didn't agree to it, but reminds Kyle he backed out. Claire believes in him and is sure both of them are capable of meeting halfway. Kyle expresses doubt that Victor would go that far. Claire is sure Kyle thinks she's naive, but he insists he thinks she's fearless. Claire has no problem arguing with her grandfather because she knows he loves her. That means they can push the boundaries a little. Slapping his knee, Kyle suggests dinner with Victor. He's free tonight. Grateful, she gives him a kiss. Lily is at the bar in Society, smiling at her phone when Victor wanders in. When he asks if she's happy to be working with her family again, she says she's happy to no longer be part of his toxic empire. Nikki joins her husband. She asks Lily, "Can't we try to embrace all's well that ends well?" Lily tells them she's happy to work with her family since they treat her with honesty and respect. No matter what excuses Nikki has, she used her and she can't forgive that. After Victor walks off to a table, Nikki says her apologies were sincere and she would have loved for her to stay a chancellor. Lily points out that would have meant a demotion, and Nikki says it's common to go up and down the corporate ladder. She's sorry Lily was hurt, but she did make her own choices. They wish her the best and look forward to putting this behind them. Before Lily can leave, she tells Victor there is something he could do if he wants to smooth things over. She needs some information on someone, no questions asked. The name is Damien Kane, and she can text him more later. The Newman agrees to look into it. After thanking him, Lily exits. Nikki admits she's glad things are thawing with Lily. She's fond of her and sings her praises. They wonder who Damien is. Victor doesn't care and he'll handle it. Claire rushes in with some papers for Nikki to sign. Victor tells Claire how impressed her grandmother is by her efficiency. They discuss how exciting and stressful work is. When they admit they have no plans for the night, Claire tells her grandfather she'd love them to have dinner. "I'd love that," he agrees. She adds she wants Kyle to join them. He purses his lips. He's surprised Kyle would agree to this. She says Kyle is important to her and she'd like Victor's blessing. It will be sad and awkward if he snubs him. Nikki trusts her judgment and approves. Sighing, crossing his arms, and then smiling, Victor says he thinks it will be a waste of time, but he'll do it for her. It will have to be later. Claire asks Nikki along and she agrees. Their granddaughter is sure it will be wonderful and wanders off. Nikki thanks her husband. "We'll see," he says, taking a drink. On the patio of Crimson Lights, Audra and Holden talk about how no one can know about their past, particularly Nate. Hastings immediately interrupts and asks what they are discussing. He asks how Damien reacted to the news about his mother. Holden explains it was the news about his dad that hit him hardest. Nate insists Amy wants to fix things and Audra echoes this. Holden says it won't happen. They are done with Geno City and Damien is done with his mother. Nate asks what he can do to stop him. He's sure the guy has a soul and can see his mother is dying. Holden admits Amy seems like a good person, but this is not his life and he won't harass his friend. He repeats that he and Damien are leaving in a few hours, so they should forget this. Once Holden walks away, Nate says this can't be how this ends for the family. Audra tells him there's only so much he can do, and there is family history he can't know. Damien has the facts. They don't even know why he stopped talking to his mother. Nate knows Amy needs forgiveness if she can get it. Taking his hand, Audra says not all endings are happy ones. They can only do their best. If he keeps pushing and Amy gets her hopes up, that may only cause more pain. Nate senses a shift in Audra and wonders if Holden said something that got her to change her mind about this. She claims he didn't say much and reminds Nate that he may be Damien's blood, but they are also strangers. This isn't good enough for Nate. He calls Damien and leaves a message, begging for another shot to convince him to stay. As Audra listens, she worries. Nate comes over and says that if he can only get those two guys to stay, then anything can happen, she says. Back at the Abbott manse, Jack and Diane bring their luggage down the steps, and she repeats they need to be out of the way while her team works their magic. He wants to see the plans, but she's sure he'd get fixated on some minor detail. She knows why this scares him. The house is his touchstone. It's where his heart lives. But they will continue to make memories there, and the family will grow and evolve. The love will never change. That makes him tear up. Diane adds they can have a romantic getaway at the club and stay secluded in their room. Giggling, they kiss. Kyle joins them, and his father guesses he already knows all about the design plans. Kyle teases Jack by mentioning jackhammering and changing drapes. Jack has to take some deep breaths, and Kyle continues to taunt him. Diane tells her son he's a pot stirrer and leads Jack out, promising he will love it. After taking a look around, Jack takes a deep breath and exits. Claire calls Kyle to ask him to meet at society later. Her grandfather agreed to dinner. Seriously, he asks. She doesn't like his response, so he says he would be delighted. Getting off the phone, Kyle mutters to himself, into the lion's den. Back at Crimson Lights, Lily joins Audra and Nate, who complains about Damien's plans to leave. She thinks he should accept that, and Audra agrees. Amy has already been let down more than once. Nate doesn't want her to lose her last chance to say goodbye to her family. Lily can understand that. As long as he's still in Genoa City, there's still a chance for all of us, Nate says. Audra slips onto the patio to make a call when Holden returns. She orders him out, and he begs her to meet him later for one drink before he goes. He can't leave without seeing her again. Hey everyone, welcome back to Radiant Serum. I'm Aubrey, and I hope your day is shining bright. Thank you for joining me. Let's jump right into today's video. One thing young and restless viewers probably didn't expect was for the show to troll viewers on Valentine's Day. And yet, according to many, that's exactly what happened. "That's an hour of my life I'll never get back," was a sentiment echoed across various social media platforms in the wake of the episode, which aired on Friday, February 14, and featured several wildly popular couples reuniting, only to reveal that the romantic scenes were a big ol' fake out. "That was just cruel," opined Facebooker Meryl Danks. "I've loved Sally and Adam since first they crossed paths. Even though I knew this was a dream sequence, it was pretty obvious from the start. I love seeing them reunite." Similarly, fans who've been longing for super couple Sharon and Nick to reunite felt tricked by the episode. Joel Serio spoke for many when he admitted on Facebook that he wanted to see Sharon and Adam's dreams come true. Could that have been the show's endgame? Were they perhaps teasing who is ultimately meant to wind up with whom? If there were two things nearly everyone agreed on, it was that Phyllis' dream felt as if it came completely out of left field. Even she was taken aback upon waking, and that portrayer Michelle Stafford looked stunning in her alter ego's dress. The overwhelming desire expressed on social media was for Young and Restless to stop doing special episodes. As Redditor Gracetweet mused, "Why do they keep doing dream shows and hallucinations? Why? Why not write real storylines?" Fortunately, it appears the show will leave the world of fantasy behind, as this week, Victor becomes more determined than ever to destroy Jack once and for all, while Summer's brother thinks she might still have a thing for Kyle. Should Claire be keeping a close eye on her boyfriend to make sure he's not drawn back to his ex? The past week was a rough one for soap opera Jordi Villasuso and his family. We are heartbroken to share that we had to say goodbye to our sweet, sweet Maddie girl, wife Caitlin shared on Instagram. She has been the most loyal companion by our sides through all of life's ups and downs during the past almost 15 years. "She was Jordi and my first baby while we were dating, welcomed home all three girls with us, and brought so much life and cuddles and joy to each of our days," she added. "She never met a stranger, had a passion for food, loved a family photo shoot, was a champion napper, and made sure to have our back until the very end, making sure she got us through our big cross-country move before she had to go." Cross-country move? Say what now? More on that later, Mrs. V said. There were many tears cried into Maddie's beautiful fur and hugs around her sweet neck. She loved us fiercely and was beyond loved in return. In closing, Caitlin tried to sum up in words what she and her family felt in their hearts. "We will love you forever, sweet pup. I pray that you're running and happy and that all dogs really do go to heaven. Until we meet again. In the meantime, we will forever be grateful for the God Wink Bailey, Rye, and Evie got in the sky a few hours after she passed." Towards the end of the video, looks to us like her sweet profile while she's playing. I'll take it. Villasuso is, of course, the Daytime Emmy winner who played Tony on Guiding Light, Griffin on All My Children, Dario on Days of Our Lives, and poor, ill-fated Ray on Young and Restless. He married actress Caitlin Riley in 2012, and the couple now have 3 daughters. Victor reveals his revenge plot to Michael. Sorry, we meant to say his latest revenge plot. We all know that the Black Knight consults a vendetta of the day calendar on the regular. Meet Courtney Hope's Valentine's Day love bug. Sensing some envy over Kyle's relationship with Claire, Daniel gives Summer the 3rd degree. As Jack and Diane make a big move, we have 2 questions. 1. Would John approve? 2. Will we approve? Young and Restless spoilers for Wednesday, February 19. Unintimidated by even impossible tasks, Nikki works to keep the peace between Victor and Jack. Only a day after Victor divulged his new plan to stick it to Jack, Michael shares a secret with Lauren. Coincidence? We think not. Summer makes a tough decision about Kyle. Here's hoping she remembers how bitterly they fight and opts to leave well enough alone. Young and Restless spoilers for Thursday, February 20. Doesn't seem like the best way to keep that past connection under wraps, but nevertheless, Audrey presses Holden for intel. Sally is bothered by Billy's bond with Phyllis, and considering how often history repeats itself in Genoa City, we don't blame her a bit. Damien surprises Nate and Amy, perhaps by revealing that he's packing up and heading back to La. Young and Restless spoilers for Friday, February 21. And this is why it's best to be on Victor's good side. Rather than plot against Lily, the tycoon uses his resources to help Neil's daughter. When Kyle tests Claire's loyalty, their romance will either become even more solidified or vulnerable to interference from his ex-wife. In the wake of Holden's bombshell, Nate vows to protect Amy. The Young and the Restless spoilers reveal Sharon Newman just can't seem to quit Nick Newman, but is her heart leading her straight into heartbreak? We have watched these two dance around each other for decades, but while Sharon might still be holding out hope, Nick seems to have moved on, again. But anything is possible on soaps, so will the legendary couple reunite? Let's dive straight into the drama. Sharon Newman recently had a fantasy dream where Nick Newman finally told her everything she's been waiting to hear. The Young and the Restless spoilers suggest that during the Valentine's Day episode, Sharon had a sizzling epiphany about Nick confessing his love to her. Furthermore, he also agreed to move into the ranch with her, but reality struck her soon after she woke up and realized that it was all just a dream. Longtime viewers know that Nick still loves Sharon and will go to any length to protect her, but does he really want to be in a relationship with her again? We have our doubts, even though it could happen in the coming months. But as of now, he's keeping everything very platonic. Everything that the CBS soap is currently airing is from Sharon's end, so is her love for Nick one-sided? Keeping all of this in mind, we cannot help but wonder if Sharon is wasting her time by pinning on her ex-husband. It completely looks like the situation where she is clinging to her past, which is comfortable. As for Nick, he might not want to ruin their friendship if their relationship doesn't work out again for whatever reason. Our predictions reveal Sharon might confess her feelings for Nick down the line. Of late, many fans have been feeling the slump in the storylines that have rolled out on The Young and the Restless. Fans have been discussing how there is a need for some very interesting characters on screen to make it all come to life. One such speculation caught a lot of heat on Reddit very recently. A character name is being thrown around, and many fans are quite on the positive side of this return. Who could it be, you ask? Here is all about it. Recently, some of the Young and the Restless fans took to Reddit to suggest a new possible storyline. Fans suggested that maybe it's time to bring back a character who has been missing from the scene and start some new storylines. This character is none other than Lauren and Michael's son Fen. The last time fans got to see Fen was many years ago. He popped up at the time of Lauren's anniversary celebration and introduced everyone to his boyfriend. While it is still not clear whether the character is gay or bi, fans have been nudging towards a storyline for him. Many fans believe that it would be rather fun if Fen was bi, and he came back to shake things up. Some fans speculated that it would be a great storyline where Fen has broken up with his boyfriend and comes to Genoa City to get paired up with someone in town. This person in question could be Claire Newman. Right now, Claire is in a relationship with Kyle Abbott. However, the ongoing storyline suggests that Kyle's ex-wife, Summer, has renewed interest in him and will start pursuing him again. When that happens, there is a huge chance that Summer and Kyle will get back together, and Claire will be left alone to wipe her tears. Enter Fen, a person who could not only wipe Claire's tears, but also give her some support. However, a few fans also had a problem with this storyline. They believe that Fen is a gay character who is very happy with his boyfriend off-screen. In fact, they hoped that this boyfriend would have by now become his husband. So it is no use bringing him back for a storyline like this. But they did suggest that maybe bringing a new character in would be great. The Young and the Restless spoilers for Tuesday, February 18. See Victor telling Michael about his revenge plot, while Daniel questions Summer and Jack and Diane make moves. It's going to be a drama-filled day, and you won't want to miss a moment. Victor survived Ian shooting him while he believes he shot and killed Ian. Now that that's all over, Victor is ready to continue doing what he does best, be Victor Newman. Now, Victor reveals his latest revenge plot to Michael. He fully intends to set his sights back on his feud with Jack and the Abbotts. How will Victor do that? Well, through Jebud, of course. This is sure to make things uneasy between Nikki and Jack, as well as Claire and Kyle. Daniel is Summer's brother. Well, one of them. The other is MIA, but that's another story. Anyway, Summer talks about Kyle and Claire with Daniel, and he can't help but give Summer the third degree. Daniel wants to know if his sister is somehow jealous of Kyle's relationship with Claire, and he has good reason to be. After all, Summer has frequently been jealous of Kyle's relationships with other women when they weren't together. Of course, Summer will deny this, but that doesn't mean Daniel is wrong. Diane wants to redecorate the Abbott mansion. Not surprisingly, Jack wasn't so sure about making significant changes to the family home. Diane enlisted Tracy's help, but even she felt it would take a lot to get Jack to make the change. Now, Jack and Diane make a big move. Does it mean he's given the go-ahead for Diane to spruce up the place, or will Jack do one better? Perhaps the move is giving Diane her own home that she can decorate any way she wants to. Nah, it's probably redecorating the Abbott mansion. Right. Claire and Kyle's relationship just started on The Young and the Restless, but there are way too many obstacles in their way. The hot new couple of Geno City never had a chance for the following reasons. This is a no-brainer. Claire was groomed by her great-aunt Claire. She will always have that in her bloodline, no matter how much treatment she undergoes. That kind of trauma sticks with you. Also, Claire clearly inherited her aunt's murderous ways. She was willing to kill her off. This reminds us that she's still keeping a big secret about her aunt's death. Once the truth comes out, this could change their relationship forever. Need we say more? There's no way that Claire can go up against Victor, even if she tried. She wants to defeat him, but she could easily fail. She's not the ruthless Newman she might think she is. Claire has much to learn, and Victor's a hard case to crack. He refuses to back down. Her father, Cole, took a while to win him over. It was a Christmas miracle. Also, it seemed like Victor thought Cole would die at the hands of Jordan. So he probably thought in his mind, let me give him this olive branch. Kyle and Summer are inseparable. You can't pry them apart, even if you tried. This situation is even more difficult because they share a son, Harrison. Once Summer got parental rights, all bets were off. At first, Harrison was smitten with Claire, but he considers Summer as his mother. Claire's only the nanny, and Harrison really wants his parents to get back together. He thinks they're happier when they're around each other. Little does he know they don't get along these days. Chelsea and Adam are moving quickly on The Young and the Restless. They're already living together. Yet, they don't want to label their relationship. Could this backfire? Adam and Chelsea aren't back together, but they sure act like they are. They ended up together after Sally and Billy dumped them. The two have been inseparable ever since. But that's because they want their son Connor to be happy. His mental health and emotional well-being are their utmost concern at the moment. This is a big reason why they moved in together. Adam and Chelsea wanted to have a fresh start with their son after all he's been through, but it makes it like they're back together. Yet, they're not labeling their relationship. This could work since there are no expectations. Chelsea and Adam haven't been romantic since their passionate night together. Their relationship never works when there's romance and commitment involved. The two are self-aware to know they butt heads and don't get along, especially when it comes to their son. There's also a chance this relationship could backfire quickly. One of them could catch feelings. Having a relationship with no strings can complicate matters. What happens if one of them wants to date somebody else? Who will be the first one to stray? This could mess up their living arrangement. Their happy family could fall apart because they didn't want to commit. Adam and Chelsea will have to meet somewhere in the middle. They might have to address what direction this relationship should go. If they don't want strings attached, they will have to set some ground rules, such as dating outside the relationship. Does this mean they're in an open relationship? It can't last if they can't figure it out. At society, Victor wanted to know if Lily was happy back at her family business, or, as Lily put it, away from his toxic empire. Nikki scolded her for her sarcasm and told her it was time to put their betrayal behind her. "Can't you embrace all's well that ends well?" Nikki asked. Lily put Nikki in her place and let her and Victor know she'll never forgive them. Victor just walked away, but Nikki tried to defend their actions and reiterated how Lily could have stayed at Chancellor. Lily told Victor there was something he could do to help smooth things over, dig up dirt on Damien Kane for her. At Crimson Lights, Holden and Audra agreed to pretend they didn't know one another, except he walked in right then and saw them. Luckily, it didn't occur to Nate that Holden and Audra knew one another and talked about Amy and Damien and getting them to reconnect. Holden revealed that he and Damien were leaving for Lay that night, which made Nate determined to stop him. Holden reminded Nate it wasn't his choice, and it wasn't Nate's business what Damien did or didn't do. All he knew was they were leaving and not looking back. Privately, Audra suggested that Nate stop getting his and Amy's hopes up about having a relationship with Damien. Holden told Audra he couldn't leave town without seeing her again and asked her to meet him for a drink. Claire was miffed that when she asked Kyle about scheduling a dinner with Victor, his response was, "If you insist." Kyle thought it was useless because no matter how many dinners they had, he'd still be Jack's son, and there was a lot of water under the bridge. Claire insisted they had Victor's blessing, but Kyle wondered what would happen if he never did. Claire said she wouldn't lose Kyle if Victor didn't agree with their relationship, but Kyle admitted that he didn't want Victor's approval anyway. Claire liked the feeling it gave her to push back with Victor. Kyle offered to have dinner with Victor after all, so Claire tricked her grandparents into agreeing to eat with them. Kyle pretended to be happy about it, but he was most certainly not. On The Young and the Restless, Victor calls Michael to the ranch for his new assignment. Now that Victor thinks all the chaos caused by Jordan Howard and Ian Ward is behind them, he can focus on his own evil plans uninterrupted. Victor announces to Michael that he wants to focus on the next stage of his revenge plot against Jack. When Michael wonders how exactly he plans to do that, Victor tells him he is going to come at him by using Jabot. What does Victor have planned for his arch-nemesis this time? And how far is he willing to take this vendetta? At Society, Daniel and Summer meet to catch up. Daniel finally got a job, but it didn't come with a job description, and he needs to figure that out. Listening to Summer, though, he realizes that she's not hearing what he is. Daniel gives Summer the 3rd degree, but she defiantly tells him that if he thinks she's jealous about Kyle and Claire's relationship, he couldn't be more wrong. But is he, though? Summer seems genuine when she tells Claire that she isn't bothered by her relationship with Kyle. But when she's with them and Claire appears, she gets her nose out of joint. This flip-flopping has gone on long enough. But Summer seems far from deciding what she wants. Is she just playing games? Diane got permission from Jack and Tracy to go ahead with her idea to give the Abbott mansion a mini makeover, promising that nothing major would be done. She was hoping to surprise Jack when it was all done, so she had them move into the Genoa City Athletic Club to be pampered for a few days, while the workers came in to do the painting. On Monday, Jack and Diane make a big move. Do they return home to a disaster? Or is Jack pleased with the results? Or are they focusing on work until they can get their house in order? Kyle and Claire met in Chancellor Park. He said he'd missed her and moved in to kiss her, but she reacted coolly. He surmised she was upset that he'd backed out of having dinner with her and Victor, but she clarified that she wasn't exactly upset. Kyle was certain that something was wrong because of him, and Claire admitted she was concerned. Kyle swore that he wouldn't have canceled if it hadn't been for Harrison, and Claire said she completely understood. Kyle theorized that Claire was upset because Summer had been there, and he explained that Harrison had wanted both his parents to help with his diorama. Claire insisted that she loved that Harrison had them both since it was the kind of childhood she could only dream of. Claire recalled that when she'd asked Kyle about rescheduling, his response had been, "If you insist." Kyle claimed he'd been joking, but Claire didn't believe him and refused to let him brush it off. Claire explained that she was having a wonderful time with Kyle and wanted to share it with people, but he hated the idea of meeting with her grandfather. Kyle defended that it felt futile to him because they could have a dozen miserable dinners, and he would still be Jack Abbott's son. He acknowledged that Claire loved Victor and that she'd spent years without parents or grandparents, and he didn't want to interfere with that. Kyle wondered if it was that important for Victor to accept them together. Claire was adamant that it was. Kyle clucked that Victor wouldn't change his mind once he was against something, and hoping for anything different was putting off the inevitable. Claire noted that her family seemed to know when to push and when to let go when going against Victor's wishes. Kyle stressed that it was time to let go. Claire figured that maybe she was greedy because the impossible had happened when she discovered that her parents loved her, and she hoped for one more miracle. Kyle cautioned that there was a certain point that invited disappointment. Claire referred to her years of missing out, and she wanted things to be perfect between her and the people she cared about. She added that her grandfather's approval meant a lot to her, but she refused to walk away from someone who made her happy to appease her grandpa. Kyle was happy to hear she wouldn't give up, but Claire wondered if she was trying alone, because his text message had made it sound that way. Kyle reiterated that the situation with Victor still stung, but it was his problem and not hers. Claire asked if her grandfather would always be an issue for Kyle. Kyle conceded that Victor was a key player, and he inquired whether Victor had been interested or even willing to have dinner with him. Claire admitted that Victor had never actually agreed to have dinner with Kyle, but only because Kyle had called to say he couldn't make it. Kyle argued that it wasn't all on him. Claire proclaimed that she believed in Victor the same way she did in Kyle, because they were both loving, caring, smart men capable of change. Kyle suspected it would take total submission on his part for Victor to accept it. Kyle considered Claire to be fearless for taking on Victor Newman. Claire shared that she felt brave when she clashed with Victor because she knew her grandfather loved her, and she knew she didn't have to agree with everything to keep the peace. She continued that pushing the boundaries a little showed how close they were as a family to survive a difference of opinion. Kyle plastered on a smile and proposed they go to dinner with Victor because he'd heard great things about the man. Kyle recognized that it meant a lot to her, and he told her he was free that night. Claire kissed and thanked him. At the Abbott mansion, Jack found Diane examining something on her tablet computer as she surveyed the living room. He asked what she was doing, and she informed him that she was letting her mind's eye take her wherever it wanted to go. He was taken aback when he saw a photo of a pouf on her tablet, and she pictured overlapping rugs and floor cushions. making the room warm and inviting. Jack guessed she was trying to get a reaction out of him, and he scoffed at the idea of floor seating in the Abbott living room. Diane asked if they were really that far apart on the idea. Diane figured there was no need to argue about her inspiration photos because Jack hadn't yet agreed to her refresh. She assured him that the floor cushions weren't to be taken literally. He complained that he was supposed to be in on the design planning, but she hadn't shown him anything. She preferred to wait for a moment when he wasn't so resistant to change, but he contended that the place had a charm to it. Diane pointedly stated that it had for decades. Diane questioned what Jack was afraid of, and he pictured her turning the whole place minimalist white or retro mauve. She teased that she was considering harvest gold and burnt sienna. She insisted that she adored him and his family home, and she would still love him if he wanted to keep the same fabric, pillows, and objects forever. She added that it would mean a lot if he had faith in her and showed a little excitement. She promised he wouldn't be disappointed. Jack confessed that he'd been testing Diane the whole time since he'd already decided to sign off on the changes. Diane chided him for stringing her along, but she wondered if he was excited. He declared that they'd give the old gal new life by making changes for all the generations living there. She insisted that it would only be tweaks and finessing, and she prompted him to formally say yes to her project. Jack jokingly asked if she wanted him to sign a contract. Diane chirped that they didn't have time for it because they had to pack. Diane noted the look of terror in Jack's eyes and assured him that they would just be packing clothes to go on vacation while the house was being updated. Diane envisioned the moment when Jack walked back in and was dazzled. Jack argued that they hadn't even started the design process, and he suggested they take Harrison to Italy that summer, giving them plenty of time to pick out fabrics and colors. Diane announced that everything was picked out and ready to be delivered as soon as she gave the word. He begged to know the color palette, and she deadpanned that it would be avocado green or harvest gold. Diane firmly stated that they had bags to pack, and Jack reluctantly followed her upstairs. Later, Jack and Diane carried their baggage downstairs. She reasoned that the redesign would happen quickly, and they needed to be out of the way while her team worked their magic. Diane acknowledged that he was scared because the house had been his touchstone, even when he'd lived in other places. She swore that they would continue to make more memories in that room, and she predicted that things would change again before Harrison shared his own moments with his grandkids there. She imagined their family would grow and evolve, but the love would never change. She tempted him with breakfast in bed and staying in their hotel room for hours on end, and they kissed. Kyle returned home. Upon seeing his parents' bags, he asked if their trip was business or pleasure. Jack realized that Kyle had known all about the redesign and how quickly it would happen. Kyle assured Jack that Diane had made it clear it wouldn't be over the top and that he and Harrison would still be there, although they'd probably move to the pool house once the jackhammer started. Kyle observed that his dad looked green, and Jack mused that all his memories were tied up in the house. Diane urged Jack to take deep breaths, and he pointed out that he would have said no if he didn't love her. Diane promised he wouldn't regret saying yes. Kyle crowed that their biggest family drama was about changing tapestries. He jokingly asked if Diane still intended to paint the ceiling and walls black. Diane ribbed Kyle for torturing both her and Jack, and she suggested she and Jack leave before Kyle undid the work she'd done calming Jack down. Jack told himself it was just finessing, and Kyle recommended that his father say it over and over to get to his happy place. Jack contended that he was in his happy place. Diane expected they'd be back before Jack knew it. Jack looked around the room one last time before they headed out. At Society, Victor greeted Lily at the bar and asked if she was happy to be working with her family again. Lily coldly confirmed that she was happy to be away from his toxic empire. Nikki joined them and suggested that they put it all behind them and embrace that all was well that ended well. Lily asserted that she was happy to be working with family who valued her and treated her with honesty and respect. Nikki considered it a blessing for them to be able to work together. Lily spat that the Newmans had used her and deceived her, and she'd probably never forgive it. Victor called it a shame and stepped away to a table. Nikki swore her apologies had been sincere, and Victor's intentions had been generous. "Yeah, towards you," Lily huffed. Nikki recognized that she'd hurt Lily by misleading her, but she pointed out that Lily had made her own choices. Nikki continued that she and Victor wished Lily the best, and they looked forward to the day they could put it behind them. Lily started to leave, but she stopped, glanced over at Victor, and noted that perhaps there was something he could do to help smooth things over. Lily asked Victor if he'd be willing to use his extensive contacts to get information on someone with no questions asked. Victor pushed to know who the person was to her, and she vaguely replied that it had to do with headhunting for Winters. Victor sensed it seemed more personal, and he requested the person's name. Lily named Damien and offered to send more information later. Victor agreed to look into it. Lily curtly thanked them and walked off. Nikki hated the conflict between their families, but she was glad things were starting to thaw. Victor wondered what she thought about Lily's request to look into Damien. Nikki implored him to honor Lily's request with no questions asked. Victor claimed that he didn't care what it was about and that he would do it. Claire interrupted with some paperwork for Nikki to sign. Victor praised Claire's efficiency, and Claire replied that it was easy when she loved her job, even if she'd resisted going back to the office. Nikki insisted it was completely different that time. Claire inquired whether her grandparents had plans for the night since she'd love to have dinner with them. Victor readily accepted, but Claire mentioned that Kyle wanted to join them after his plans had fallen through the prior night. Victor doubted that Kyle had actually said that. Nikki figured it was just dinner, and Victor could manage it. Claire argued that Kyle was important to her, and so was Victor's approval. Victor countered that she didn't need his blessing, but she stressed that she'd like to have it. She imagined that it would be awkward for her if Victor continued snubbing Kyle. Nikki cautioned that the Newman women didn't give up until they got what they wanted. Nikki offered her support, and Claire inquired whether Victor could do the same. Victor reasoned that he'd never refuse to have dinner with Claire and Kyle, but he thought it was a waste of time. He relented because it was something Claire wanted, but he said they'd have to do it later that night because he had a meeting to go to first. Claire gushed that it would be wonderful, and she kissed Victor's cheek and scurried off. Nikki thanked Victor because it meant the world to Claire and to her. "We'll see," he replied. Claire called Kyle and asked him to meet her at society later since her grandfather had said yes. "Seriously?" Kyle queried. Claire pleaded that she didn't know if they'd get the chance again, and Kyle clarified that he wasn't saying no. Claire thought his response sounded a lot like, "If you insist." Kyle overenthusiastically stated that he'd be delighted. She said she'd let him know about the timing and mentioned that Nikki would be joining them. "Super," he replied with a sour look on his face, and he hung up. "Into the lion's den," he grumbled to himself. On the Crimson Lights patio, Audra and Holden agreed to pretend they didn't know one another. She told him to enjoy his flight home and stay away from her, since the last thing she needed was Nate finding out they had a history. Nate approached and asked what was going on. Holden said he was just grabbing coffee and hadn't planned on meeting. Nate inquired about how Damien had taken the news about Amy. Holden testily asked whether Nate meant the part about Amy's health or the one where she'd kept a secret for Damien's entire life. Nate sympathized that it had been a lot to take in, but he was worried about Amy. Holden snapped that it had killed Damien that Amy had lied about the only father he'd ever known. Nate defended that Amy was trying to fix things, and Audra added that Amy would love to mend things with her son. Holden flatly stated that it wasn't going to happen since he and Damien were heading back to Lay that night, and Damien was done with Genoa City and his mother. Nate questioned what he could do to stop Damien. Holden maintained that it was pointless to try, but Nate doubted that Damien was ready to write his mother off. Holden argued that it was Damien and Amy's business, and it wasn't his place to ask questions. Holden pointed out that Amy had lied about who Damien's father was and thrown a half-brother in his face, so what Nate thought didn't factor in. Nate imagined Damien had a soul, and Damien's dying mother wanted to reconnect with her son before it was too late. Holden admitted that he'd seen nothing but kindness in Amy's face, but it wasn't his life or Nate's, and he refused to harass his friend to make a decision. Holden added that it was best for everyone to forget it had ever happened, and he walked away. Nate swore it couldn't be how things ended. Audra advised that there was only so much Nate could do since every family had a history no one else could understand. Nate remained determined to get through to Damien, but Audra warned that there might be too much bad blood. Nate recalled seeing a look in Amy's eyes that he'd seen in patients close to the end, showing their panic over things left undone. Nate pledged to talk to Damien again and try to convince him to forgive Amy. Audra took Nate's hand in hers and gently stated that all endings weren't always happy ones, but they'd done the best they could. She continued that he couldn't control Damien, and getting Amy's hopes up would only cause her more pain. Nate voiced surprise because he'd thought Audra supported a mother and son reunion. He questioned whether something had happened to change her mind. Audra claimed that Holden hadn't said much before Nate had walked in, but Holden had mentioned that Damien was ready to go back to LA after being burned by Amy's lies. Audra pointed out that Nate and Damien might be blood, but they were still strangers, and what Nate said only mattered so much. She insisted that she wanted a reunion for Amy, but Damien also had to want it, and he didn't. Nate barked that it wasn't good enough, and he attempted to call Damien. Nate left Damien a message, pleading for one more shot to make him want to stay. Nate lamented that if Damien and Holden got on the plane, it was over. His voice trailed off as he contemplated what would happen if he got them to stay. Then anything could happen, Audra muttered, clearly unnerved. Lily entered the coffee house as Nate and Audra ordered drinks. Lily invited Nate to chat about a project before their meeting the next day. Nate agreed, but he warned that he might have to run if Damien wanted to meet. Lily assumed Damien was still resistant, and Nate revealed that his brother was leaving town if he couldn't talk Damien out of it. Lily urged Nate to accept that it was Damien's decision, but Nate wanted one last chance to mend things between Amy and Damien before she passed. Lily suggested she and Nate go over their proposals. Audra stepped out to the patio to make a call. She ran into Holden and ordered him to walk back out, since she was never supposed to see him again. Audra hissed that Nate was 20 feet away, and she couldn't talk to Holden then. Holden invited her to meet him later, but she growled that it wasn't happening. He pushed for one drink before he left, adding that he couldn't leave without seeing her again. The Young and the Restless spoilers for Tuesday, February 18, suggest some interesting plot twists as February sweeps roll on in Genoa City. Someone unveils a revenge plan, while a super couple is on the move, and a character grills their sibling. What's set to unravel during Tuesday's show? Time to find out. Victor Newman reveals his revenge plan. During the Tuesday, February 18 episode, Victor Newman will reveal his latest revenge scheme to Michael Baldwin. During the Y and R weekly preview, a scene was shown between the moustache and his lawyer, as Victor tells Michael he is ready to unleash the next phase of his plan against Jack Abbott. Sounds like Victor has eyes on Chabot. However, what exactly does he have in mind? Will he buy the company out, or will he ruin John Abbott's legacy for good? Jack's big move. Speaking of Jack, he and his wife, Diane Abbott, will make a big move on Tuesday, But what could this be about? Sounds like this has to do with the Abbott Mansion's renovation. Will Jack approve of Diane's choices? Could this be something that drives a wedge between the two? After all, the Abbott Mansion isn't only Jack's home, but where he grew up. It's filled with family memories and nostalgia. Here's hoping this Reno isn't the thing that ends the super couple for good. Daniel Rumalotti grills. Across town, it sounds like Daniel Rumalotti will grill his sister, Summer Newman. The conversation will turn toward Kyle Abbott's new relationship with Claire Newman, and Daniel will sense some jealousy there and call Summer out on it. Of course, Summer will fluff it off, but fans know that she's more than a little envious of Kyle's affections for Claire, not to mention how much Harrison Abbott adores her newfound cousin. How will Summer feel when Daniel brings this up? Winters was determined to cut ties with Victor Newman and never speak to him again. However, when Nikki Newman approached Lily and wanted to make amends, it was very surprising when Lily agreed. Lily did have a condition to this truce, and that was for Victor to find out everything he could on Damian Lewis. Damian Lewis is new in Genoa City. Damian is new in Genoa City, so it is curious that Lily is interested in anything Victor can find out about him. All Damian really did was bump into Lily one time. It's not like Damian is there to take over the family company or anything. Why is Lily so interested in finding out all the dirt that Victor can dig up on Damian? Nate Hastings works with Lily and Devon Hamilton at their family company. Nate tried to take over the company before, so Lily may not fully trust him. Of course, Lily may also wonder if Damian is a threat now that he has met the family. If Damian is Nate's half-brother, he is also technically family. Damian Lewis is not a blood relative. Damian isn't a blood relative to Lily, so there could be a possible relationship there if Damian were to stick around. However, Lily seems rather cold to Damian even when he apologized. Could Damian be an underhanded businessman and Lily just senses that he could turn on them and try to do something with the company, or is she attracted to Damian? Lily is not exactly lucky in love, so one could certainly understand her checking out someone if she were interested in them. Just look at her last relationship. Perhaps Lily has just decided to be more cautious before she gives someone else a chance. Damian has been seen taking a second look and giving Lily a secret smile behind her back. Damian Lewis' right-hand man is connected to Tucker McCall. Audra Charles knows Holden Novak, and he is connected to Tucker McCall. Tucker is Devon Hamilton's father. Devon doesn't associate with Tucker, but that doesn't mean that Tucker wouldn't come after his company again. Tucker was behind the first takeover attempt. Could Lily know that Damian and Tucker may know each other, or has she overheard something? Does Damian really want to do what he said and leave town never to return? Lily could know more about Damian than her family and just want to make sure to protect them all. However, Lily may just be trying to keep Nate from getting hurt as well.